There's no way I'm going to say that word.
Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on Real Talk with Keith Smith. It's an absolute pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network on a show that's presented by Yes Realty Partners. Yes Realty Partners, a trusted brokerage in Charlottesville, Albemarle, and across Central Virginia and the Commonwealth. A brokerage founded by Keith and Yonna Smith, who have been in business since 1987. There is no substitute for experience, integrity, and honesty, qualities embodied by Keith and Yonna Smith, a couple that has been in this game we call real estate for nearly 40 years. We encourage you, the viewer and listener, to join us in this conversation by offering your comments in the chat box on whatever platform you're watching the show upon. The show airs on every single social media and podcasting platform possible. We want you to shape the discussion. Judah Wickhauer is behind the camera. It's a Friday the 13th special of Real Talk with Keith Smith with quite a bit of data to cover today as the spring market appears to have sprung in certain pockets of Central Virginia. We will dissect and analyze with the source of the source, the freshly manicured, the sharply dressed,
For my hot date this afternoon.
the always conversational Keith Smith. Judah Wickhauer. If you can go to the studio
So I
camera,
got to live
please.
up to all of this. Damn.
I can follow you around if you would like and do this all day.
I cannot afford that.
No, you cannot. I don't think anyone in this community can.
No, I wasn't talking about money. I just couldn't afford it. You'd be busting my chops so much. I don't think it'd be like having Fairchild follow me around.
Oh, I love Chris Fairchild.
I
Haven't seen that man in a minute. How's he doing?
He's doing well, I think. I haven't spoken to him in a while. I know the local jurisdictions are all up to their ears in alligators with budget season and all the fun stuff that goes around that. I had on a a commission meeting. I had Jen, the new city councilor, on this meeting we were doing. We were talking
Jen
about
Fleischer?
Yeah, we were talking about, and it's public record. We were talking about the budget season, and I jumped in and I said, "Isn't budget season sexy?" And she laughed. So, budget season isn't sexy. It's the opposite of sexy.
And Judah, you set up YouTube the right way? All good to go?
Friday the
Fantastic.
13th. So does anybody know where the origins are? Did you ever think about where the origins of Friday the 13th came from, Judah? That's the reason I was asking you. This would be something you might know, or where people seem to believe that it came from.
I do not know where the origins are.
No. So the Knights Templar were all arrested on Friday the 13th, and that's supposedly, historically, how it got set. So if you know your history a little bit, that was a little bit of an unpleasant act by the Catholic Church back in those days. But in any event, it supposedly goes back as far as the Knights Templar, back in the medieval days. I think recently it's more like the Freddy Krueger Friday the 13th movie. That's where it gets in.
Freddy Krueger comes to mind with Friday the 13th. Edward Scissorhands, not really.
That was a fun movie.
He was not so much of an evil guy.
Yeah, it was a fun
Jason with the hockey mask comes to mind with Friday the 13th. What are some other villains associated with Halloween and Friday the 13th? That's certainly up Judah's alley over there. For me, it's what? Jason? It's Candyman?
I don't know about Candyman. Jason is Friday the 13th. Freddy Krueger is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Are you on a 3-shot?
No.
Oh, I got Krueger.
Let's put you on there.
Jason, right? Is it Jason in Friday the 13th? I think it's Jason in Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I was never a fan of horror movies.
Neither was I. Neither am I. My wife likes them. I don't like them. I don't want to be scared watching in my spare time.
Just walking down the street is scary enough in today's world to go ahead and want to scare yourself.
No, I don't mind a good mafia or crime movie.
But that's not scary.
That's
though.
different. That's not scary.
It is scary, but it's not scary.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What's your best mafia movie?
I think you'll know this answer.
Yep.
You know me fairly well.
I know it.
What do you think it is?
Goodfellas.
Yeah, it's Goodfellas.
Yeah,
I mean, how can you not like Scorsese's Goodfellas?
there you go.
Right?
Good movie. Good movie.
This is where you cue up the Joe Pesci when he's at the restaurant with the gun in his hand. Tell that story. It's a good one.
Yeah, so that was a total ad-libbed piece, and Pesci was, and I've heard this through my daughters in the industry and blah, 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 actually carried a loaded 38 with him.
Which is insane.
Which he was always in character, right? And so they got into that scene, and was it Joe Liotta? What?
Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta, thank you. Did this thing, and Pesci just went off, and he just kept the cameras rolling and went ahead and did it. And Ray was actually scared for his life because that was a loaded 38.
He knew it was a loaded gun.
It was a loaded gun. It's that was totally ad-libbed and scared the living daylight. That fear in his eyes was real. So, market.
Kevin Yancey says good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Be safe on the road, brother.
Yeah.
We have a 1.6 jump this week. I've been starting to do this every 7 days, ending yesterday. So we had 62 new listings, 66 went on the market. That's a 1.06 jump. So it's kind of balanced. But year to date, our absorption ratio, that stuff that's come on and gone off, is at 1.34. So we are still seeing a up-tempo market, and it sure feels like out there it's a little bit more springy than the temperature and the snow would indicate.
It certainly appears the spring market has sprung in a lot of pockets of this community.
Well, a lot of pockets is important, right? We talk about micro markets all the time,
Yeah.
and what is performing better and what isn't. I think one of the takeaways that I found when I did all my year-end numbers, and we talked about this before, is the jump in the $1 million plus market and the divergence of the median versus. Do you have those slides ready by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So slide 1 will show this. This is a 2016 tracking of average versus median. You'll see, thank you, buddy. When you see on the back end around 24, you see whether it starts really at 22, but you start seeing, 24, 25, this big divergence between the median and the sales. And the green line is showing the volume that, peaked at COVID. So these are the number of transactions that jumped down. So, that's kind of a big picture overview of the market, and it just shows that my opinion is a lack of inventory, which is really what's driving this spread.
Viewers and listeners, put your feedback in the chat box, and I will relay it live on air. Comments are already coming in. I have comments that I want to get to first here on Real Talk with Keith Smith. This one for you, Keith Smith. The spring market has popped in a lot of communities. Are these folks that are trying to lock in home purchases before the start of the school year and summer travel? Is that what generally leads this? Or are these folks that are trying to be first to market to try to capture the cherry on the sundae if it's available? Also, are they often domino deals or are they non-domino deals?
So, 3 questions, great questions.
Thank you.
My overall caveat of 2025 is the market followed the inventory. So your second comment to cherry on the top would be more of where I think the market is going. Where there is inventory that meets the 6 rights, right? We talk about this all the time, right price, right location, price, features, condition, timing, and who's on the other side matters are moving, right? They're getting traction. Thank you, Smith. They're getting traction. So it's do you meet these things, and it moves. If you don't, then it's going to sit, because today's buyer right now, and we'll talk a little bit about that from a Zillow report I read this morning, but today's buyer is looking for things that are different than it was 20 years ago, right? And we can talk about that a little bit later.
I saw your Zillow post.
Thank you. You're starting to see the builders, and we're focusing on new construction this year, or this February. I can speak English today, but you're starting to see square footages decrease, right? You're starting to see homes that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, where 2,700 square feet was kind of the average size these days. Now you're in the 2,300 square foot range, and you're starting to see, and we've been talking about this for a long time, single level with primaries on the main level has really skyrocketed in the last few years. And what that is, somebody told me this a long time ago. If you really want to know what the real estate market's doing, follow the builders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? They usually have their pulse on the market and pulse on what the market is looking to buy. And if you meet these criteria, or even if you're in an existing home, not new construction, but if you meet this criteria that the builders are seeing the market wants and producing, your chance of selling goes up markedly. If you don't, then there's a couple other parts of those 6 things we need to take a look at, right? And usually it's price is the one that we can go ahead and start manipulating a little bit.
This comment comes in, and there are a lot of them already coming in. We're going to get to them here. First, we'll start with the mayor of Waynesboro. We've highlighted in the past, this is not necessarily applying to Charlottesville and Almaro, Kevin, but we'll relay the comment anyway. Please explain how private equity firms snapping up single-family homes to the tune of $860,000 plus removed from the housing market is anyway good, driving markets to the insane prices people are asking, most times getting. This is any firm owning 1,000 homes or more, not the mom and pop owners. We understand that's happening, Kevin. This comes up from you often. This is not happening in Charlottesville, Almaro, or Central Virginia.
Yeah, micro markets matter. I actually wrote an op-ed that I'm working on a couple of national publications that produced that kind of talks a little bit about this, and a little bit about the new House bill that got passed at 390 to 9, right? So that kind of tells you how important housing is even at the federal level, and we can talk about if it really impacts us here locally or not if you want. But that impact is very much so the case in markets like Vegas and these areas that these equity firms bought it. There's also some legislation floating around out there. I believe there was an executive order that was done that's trying to tone some of that back down. If that's actually going to get traction and actually be implemented is something different. I think where that might impact this market here, because we surely don't have it on the other side of the mountain, we don't have it here. It just doesn't exist. What it could impact, and I don't think this is really going to happen, but it could, is if you're trying to move out of some of these markets that are getting softer into our market, your values may be decreasing in those markets because of what Kevin is outlined. But day to day, transaction to transaction, we are not seeing that impacting here very much. So the investor that owns residential rental units are, maybe in the hundreds at the most, right? And there's a handful that might fit that category. For the most part, they're 10 or less is usually. That's purposely, by the way, because you get into a tax bracket if you start going over 10. But that's a whole different can of fish.
Keith Smith, Judah Wickhauer, comments continue to come in. Randy O'Neill's watching the program. This question has come in. Can he offer the baseline of how Lake Monticello is doing? As he says, it's the litmus test often on Real Talk for real estate in our community.
Yeah, so you're starting to see inventory fluctuate, come up and down. I don't have it broken down specifically for that. I actually got a slide for Fluvanna County, which includes everything. But, look, at the end of the day, Lake Monticello is a majority of the tax base that for the local tax. It is 4,500 plus or minus homes out of, I think the last count I had was a little over 11,000, so it's not quite 50%, but it's awfully darn close to it. But transactions are happening. Things are moving back and forth on it. And I thank the question, because if you really take a deeper dive on what's happening at Lake Monticello, it is reflecting what's happening out in the rest of the jurisdictions. Here's the difference. The numbers are tighter, right? You don't have this huge gap, and I'll find a slide number for you. It is not broken out. It'd be slide 4.
Slide 4 on screen. Judah's going to give us the thumbs up. It's on screen.
Thank you. So
What's the play-by-play?
So what you're looking at here is from 16 to 2025, or we ended it as of 12/31/25. You're looking at the average and median price. You see how they're tracking, and they're still starting to separate a little bit in 2022, but not at the level as the full car footprint. If we take a look at Albemarle County, it's even greater, but we've had that conversation before. But the blue bars are your volume of units sold. So we've grew in volume of units in Fluvanna County, which again is mostly Lake Monticello. It's also mostly one subdivision, by the way. That's impacting quite a bit how Fluvanna County is performing, which is Colonial Circle. So I don't have exact numbers today for Lake Monticello, but that'd be a great data set to put together for maybe next week.
The follow-up question is, are the days on market getting longer at Lake Monticello, or is the inventory still moving quickly? Good questions right there.
Yeah, so the definition of quickly we probably need to define, right? Are they sitting longer than the unicorn years when it's sold in 39 and a half seconds? Yes. Are they sitting on like they used to at 100 days or more? Some might, if they're not in the right location within the micro location within Lake Monticello, are not priced right, do not have the right features, do not have the right condition. Yes, they could sit there. But if they meet those first 4, under 2 months, under 60 days, I don't have the exact data. I can surely look it up while you read some more questions and put it together pretty quickly for you. But yeah, to me, it's normal. It's a normal pace. So I can look up Lake Monticello if we'd like to do that.
No, I think you covered it well. I think one of the storylines that is not being covered that should be covered is what the Charlottesville Office of Economic Development published yesterday on social media. The Charlottesville Office of Economic Development, in conjunction with the Charlottesville-Albemarle Airport Authority, are pushing a call to action. And I think this is overall positive. And the call to action is for a direct flight from Cho to Boston.
I saw that.
And the direct flight from Cho to Boston is specifically to strengthen the ties between Charlottesville and Boston, which has the potential to unlock new opportunities for Central Virginia by supporting business growth, research partnership, workforce mobility, investment, venture capital across life sciences and biotechnology.
So they're connecting the centers, right?
Well, yeah, Boston is the epicenter of biotechnology and life science.
Yeah.
Not just the practice of biotechnology and life science, not just the companies that execute along the silos of work of life science and biotechnology, but the venture capital is there. And Charlottesville and Albemarle, in conjunction with the Charlottesville-Albemarle Airport Authority, are working extremely, efficiently and focusedly behind the scenes to create a direct line from Cho to Boston. This is hugely impactful on the real estate community, ladies and gentlemen. And there's not really anyone in the real estate community that's talking about this now.
So I read that. So that, yes. Look, I've been living here since '87. The airport has grown tremendously, of course, in physical size, but it's grown tremendously in the way it operates, in the way it runs. It's become more than just a little small airport. It's a great starting point, literally, to go around the world. The interconnection they're talking about, because they've upped their flights, by the way, if you haven't noticed it yet, from show to New York, right? They're doing show to Boston now, which I think you're going to start seeing that pick up. From the everyday traveler, I go to Richmond only because they have more flights. It's the same amount of drive from where I live to show, and it's about half the price. That said, what they're doing is very wise. They're trying to do an artery connection to the money to the employment centers, right? Because we are now having these 600 jobs. Where are they coming from? They're coming from these universities, right? And the university cities and towns to come down here. It's going to bump the prices. Look.
Well, I'll push back slightly here.
Good.
AstraZeneca and its $4.5 billion investment in northern Albemarle County, Rivanna Futures, that is literally next to the Charlottesville-Albemarle Airport.
No, I get that.
So the folks that are living in Albemarle County, Ivy, Crozet, northern Albemarle, or Green, that are going to work in AstraZeneca, they would much be less inclined to then drive to Richmond,
100%.
where they're going to be a 2-hour drive
I'm
to
talking
Richmond, where
about-
you're closer because you live in Fluvanna,
Yes.
as opposed to a 5-minute drive, 10-minute drive, 15-minute drive to Cho and catch I would imagine a Charlottesville to Boston flight is probably 40 minutes,
Yeah, and
45 minutes.
plus they're on company dimes.
Yeah,
right?
they're not paying for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm talking about somebody who wants to travel. When you start taking a look at costs,
Yeah, this is for insiders. This is for people that work there.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so I wanted to weave in a little bit about the price difference because it's substantial if you ever done any research. Back on Lake Monticello, days on market, I just ran literally all of last year and up into the date. The median days on market in Lake Monticello is 20. That's still relatively low, right? Where, depending on who you talk to, and I think days on markets as a metrics of the market performance pretty much evaporated in COVID, right? So, I remember looking at that thing prior to COVID when median was in the 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 day mark. But at the moment, we're trading homes on a median days on average of 20 at Lake Monticello.
Can you imagine a world, because I certainly can, where there's direct flights daily from Boston to Charlottesville, where Charlottesvillians are working in Boston but choosing to live in Charlottesville because the cost of living is significantly more affordable than Boston? I mean, we could imagine a world.
I think you're going to see that happen. I think you're going to see, look, we got 600 people, just as one company, right? Where it's safe to say, I think we're in agreement on this, these folks are going to come from someplace else to here, right? They're not going, more than likely, they're not going to move internally to work there. They're probably being a percentage relocated. Well, if we don't have the inventory for them, which I don't believe we do, for them to live in, to buy and move down, they're probably going to do some sort of remote work or some sort of commute down, go to one of the apartment complexes that they're popping up here left and right and live in that and commute back and forth between Boston or wherever they may be living. I think that's a lot of what the mentality is on this.
I see what's going to happen here with the Boston. If this direct flight materializes, the Boston to Charlottesville direct flight with Cho, I see this driving digital nomads to Charlottesville to live and/or Bostonians to consider living in Charlottesville and working in Boston and/or Charlottesville, but calling Charlottesville, Albemarle County their home. This direct flight is overall incredibly positive for the Charlottesville and Albemarle County, specifically Albemarle County, the Albemarle County economy.
Yeah, 100%.
Because this is where it's going to be. And it's
100%.
without question going to drive significant tailwinds for values, specifically in Albemarle County.
Yeah, it's just going to go back. Well, let's, Judah, I'll find you the slide for that here. Hang on a second. I got all kinds of stuff I got to go through here. I'm not that smart. 9. Oh, excuse me, I apologize, not 9. No. Give me a minute, folks. 2, my apologies, 2.
On screen.
So that gap you're seeing right now between the average price and the median price, based on the conversation we're having right now, is only going to increase, right? We're not quite flat on median. I think next year you're going to see a flat median. I think when we look at this show next year and do it and take a look at 2016 to 2026, I think you're going to see that median flatten out in Albemarle County, if not take a bit of a dip.
You think the median value is going to dip
Yes.
in Albemarle County?
But the average is going to continue to skyrocket. So why the median is dipping is because of the lack of sales at that price point, and as the average goes up, it impacts the middle. Right?
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I think you're going to see it flat because you can see it's just
You're talking value.
talking what the sales price is
Yeah.
going to be. I
Yeah.
think is going to flatten out median, not the average,
No,
the
I
median, year over year. I think you're going to see it more like, if you go back to slide 1, it's going to look more like what happened in the full car footprint. Because if you go through my slide, you start taking a look at jurisdiction after jurisdiction, some had an increase, some were a little bit less, but Albemarle County was one of the flattest year-over-year median increases of all the jurisdictions, and I think you're going to see it stay that way.
Ray Cadell,
unless you get more inventory, which we're not going to have.
No, we're not going to have more inventory. Ray Cadell watching the program, he says they also fly out of Richmond, his band, when they buy 13 tickets at a time from a price standpoint.
Yeah.
There's no question that the savings when you fly out of Richmond versus Cho, it's a huge delta.
So
I'll put it
here's-
in perspective. Judah and I and the team, we would fly. This was when we were really grinding and building the business. How long ago was it when we had our office in New Providence, New Jersey? Was that 10 years ago? 8 years ago?
I know. How long? We've been doing this for 7, and I think you just was wrapping it up. at
Yeah,
that
we
point.
had an office in New Providence, New Jersey, where we legitimately were flying to New Providence, New Jersey for a week at a time to work 60 hours out of hotel conference rooms in our client conference rooms and charging New Providence and New York and Connecticut prices but using Charlottesville labor. And we did that for 6, 7, 8 years while growing and building this business. It was effing brutal, but you do what you got to do to build the business. When we flew out of Cho, the convenience for the staff and the team was amazing.
Yeah, of course.
The efficiency, because time was money, was amazing. But the delta in price, we're talking 30 or 40% more ticket price then versus coming out of Richmond.
And how many nonstops did they have at that time?
It was longer than that.
6 years ago was, I think, the last time we were.
That was the start of COVID, 6 years ago, 2020. I don't think it was 6 years
I
ago.
know. When we started doing the show, you were just winding it
Yeah,
down.
because I met Lauren on a plane then
Yeah.
as we were winding down, and that was before Real Talk.
I 100% know that.
But I'll tell you what, that was a
Not that I was there.
brutal life doing that.
So here's a little show hack.
Yeah.
Charlottesville is a Charlottesville airport hack. If you're catching a flight anywhere at a show, make sure you're on the first flight.
Oh, yeah. Dude, remember the flights we used to take? 3-shot Judah Wickower. What was the
Always
flight?
take the 5 o'clock flight. Or
We took the
whatever.
5 o'clock flight,
Yeah,
and we would go Charlottesville to Philly to Newark.
So one
Or
of the-
Charlottesville, Charlotte to Newark.
So when we pivoted from Charlottesville, and hopefully they've gotten it better, from Charlottesville to Richmond, one is because of the cost to substantial cost savings on it, more flights, right, more efficient airport. But if you are trying to go from Charlottesville to Atlanta or Charlottesville to Charlotte or whatever it is to try to go wherever you're going, in the middle of the day, if your flight wasn't on time coming
Yeah.
out of show, it messed up your whole day. So always get your first flight out of show.
100%. That's a great hack right there. I'll say another thing is flying out of Cho, there was oftentimes flying out of Charlottesville Albemarle's airport that I would show up for the flight 10 minutes before the flight took off and be able to board. There was one time where I was literally late. Judah had to print my boarding pass out, and he hid it under a seat in the lobby. I grabbed the boarding pass, made it through the security gate, and literally told the gate attendant at the airline, saying, I have to get on this flight. I'm heading to a funeral. Please let me on the flight. And they opened the door.
Yeah. Good
This
for you.
was like 7 minutes before the flight took off. I showed up.
Well, you're one lucky man because that don't normally happen.
She's like, okay, we'll make an exception.
So
Is that not true? True story right there. He printed the boarding
I don't know
pass.
about your excuse, but
That
yes,
was the
they
excuse.
did let you on after the door had closed.
The excuse couldn't have been, I need to get on this flight. I need to charge $2.95 an hour for 60 hours. Let me on, please.
Well, hold it. Did I just hear we fibbed a little bit?
Oh, without question. Undoubtedly. Do what you got to do.
you go.
I think that's called the cost of doing business.
I hope you went to confession afterwards.
I did. It was called Jack Daniels.
Yeah. So I'm going to buzz through these slides real quick because I want a visual for those who might be watching now, watch it later, on where the deltas are changing between average and median. So when you look at these slides, for the most part, just look at the right side, or which is the 24. So if you can start with 2, which is Albemarle County.
On screen, Vanessa Parkhill, hello.
Hey, Vanessa. 3 is Charlottesville, still a little flat, the median. By the way, the average is flattening a little bit, but you take a look at a big jump between 23 and 24 on the average. Fluvanna is climbing on your averages. It's a nice steady. If you take a look at Fluvanna as far as the median price performance, right? It looks super healthy from 2022 to now. It's a very steady, nice climb up, in the 3 to 6% year over year range, but the average jumped quite a bit. Louisa County, again, if you look from 2022 through 2025, it's this pretty straight, consistent median climb. The average took a little bit of a dip. Greene County is a huge jump from 2022 up into 2023. We're jumping from sub 250 to north of 300, just around 300 for the median. But you look at that climb, it's nice and steady up. And then Nelson County flattened out. So when you take a look at all of those together, right, that's where I'm going to. I think the counties that you see the continuing steady climb, you're going to see that again in 2026. The ones that are flattening out, Albemarle County would be one of them. I think you're going to, when we take a look at these slides next year, I think you're going to see a continuation of that and a continuation of the upper. And I want to give another shout out to Ray Cadell. What Ray does is awesome. I love listening to what he does, and he's in the trenches helping people at first-time home buyers, which I know can be a thankless job, and I wanted to thank him for that because that's a hard thing to do and a hard space to be in a market like
Viewers and listeners, comments in the feed. Ray Cadell, you're an absolute gem. We love you here on Real Talk with Keith Smith and across the I Love CVille Network. This comment continues to, the Cho storyline continues to resonate with viewers and listeners on the show. This is a great one. Does Keith, and you've covered this, does Keith think Greene County is the next jurisdiction to boom?
It is.
Yeah.
So
You cover this well.
Well, actually, we'll spend a little time with that here for a second. Slide 6, if you don't mind, Judah. That tells the story right there. Look at so the blue is the inventory, right? The number of sales, the bars, that is, and then the graph lines are your average and your median. But let's take a look at something, because I actually got new construction slides here. Give me 1 second, Judah. B11.
On screen.
So thank you, Judah. So what you're looking at here, the blue bars are the number of new construction. The gray line is your school enrollment, by the way. So take a look at where the school enrollment has done in Greene County starting in 16, 17. So that school enrollment data, so to get this out there, is only public schools, only from the Virginia Department of Education, and they do it every fall, right? So what we're not calculating here is the private sector, Catholic schools.
The private schools are booming.
And
Talk to them about the enrollment at the public schools.
so if you take focus on Greene County, that has jumped, and I've got a slide on the percentage drop on it here in a minute. But if you could take a look at the line, new construction doesn't necessarily relate to new students in the school. Matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. The only jurisdiction that had a positive growth on it, believe it or not, is Louisa County. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
Positive growth on
Students.
Student enrollment.
Student enrollment.
Yeah.
But if you take a look at that slide, 2025, we've jumped the new construction units quite a bit. So the answer to the question in the short version, I've covered it 100 times. Greene County is the rock star. It will continue to be the rock star. When you go back and look at the Greene County slide as far as average and median, the numbers are a little tighter. You'll see them stay a little tighter. This is probably not going to be a popular comment I'm about ready to make about Greene County. New construction is going to be growing between 200 to 400 units, depending on the year, between 200 to 400 units a year. That's going to put pressure on existing rooftops on value. And I haven't dug into that data yet. And I think the end of next year will tell us more about what the increase in value in new construction is versus the existing. It's too soon to tell, right? We only have...
Break down what you mean by that.
So what I'm saying is think of Greene County as one big old subdivision, right? So we talked about this in the Zillow article. The builders are providing what the buyer wants. What is the buyer pool, right? We go back to the NAR data, right? And, I've been critical of NAR over the last several years, but they get their data spot on, right? The average age is 40 of the first-time home buyer. The average move-up buyer, which is moving into Greene County, is 62. Guess how old I am? A little older than that, but that's the buyer profile. That's the pool. And the builders, and if you watch the builders, they're providing what the buyer wants. They're really good at their pulse on the market. And you'll see these new construction units come up. What you're also going to see is a winding down of townhomes and an increase of smaller square footage, single-family detached homes, because that's what I want.
You're on point right now.
I did the homework.
Well, it's good. And I'll throw another wrinkle in. The average age for the first-time home buyer, Keith knows this. Judah, what is the average age, according to the National Association of Realtors, you know this as well, for the first-time home buyer in 2025?
Let's see. I think it's, like 41?
40 years old. Judah Wickower. Let's give props to Judah, Keith.
So we need to bet again because I'm still waiting on my bourbon from the...
Keith? Oh, the Juan Wade.
I'm just waiting on my bourbon.
Juan Wade. We owe a Juan Wade there, Keith Smith.
I'm throwing it out there.
Juan Wade is the new mayor of Charlottesville.
I'm just throwing it out there. I called it.
We're going to get his favorite scotch.
Who? Me?
For the bourbon? Or, bro, you want bourbon instead of scotch?
Well, I prefer you to spend a little money and get a really good rum, but I'll take the bourbon.
Okay.
I'll take the bourbon.
But what's the bet you're going to say? Is that average age of 40 going to increase?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know it's going to increase.
But the number.
Oh, wow. What's your guess?
42.
You think it'll go to 42?
I think we're going to see another 2-year jump.
Well, the reason I brought this up is if the average age of the first-time home buyer is 40 and you're expecting it to go even higher, that buyer profile, as someone who's now in his 40s, is going to be even more focused on buying a home that has a place that you can age in place. Where like when the average age of the first-time home buyer pre-COVID, or even 15 or 20 years ago, it was probably in the 20s. At that point, you didn't have the life perspective to consider buying a house where I was like, I might be here forever.
I gave a 45.
You know what I'm saying?
I gave a 45-minute presentation to the Rotary on Tuesday about this very topic, and specifically about Flavanna and where things are tracking and where you're going to see the impacts across the board on it. And we spent a lot of time looking at the Flavanna slide that's in the deck that I have here about how new construction is in as it relates to the schools, right? But real quick, I just want to get this data out. Do you have a slide 14, Judah? That would be the public school population change pre-COVID 2019 to 2026. Good, thanks. So look at this. Look at these numbers. Louisa County's jumped 8%. Albemarle County's lost 2.5%. I'm rounding numbers up here. Charlottesville lost 4%. Greene County lost 5%. This is from 2019. Flavanna's lost 8%. So what Louisa gained, Flavanna lost. Unfortunately, the big loser here is Nelson County at 15%. It's budget season. Why does this matter?
Because budget season is how you see how your elected official truly votes
And?
truly leads.
Why are these percentages important for the local budget? Let's do a little civics class here.
I mean, let's cut to the chase. Charlottesville City, let's go Charlottesville City, right? They have financial consultants advising the councilors that they have budget headwinds.
Yeah, I've just, Flavanna just announced its budget. Now it's preliminary. They got to go through the whole negotiations. It's the process, right? They have to announce it, all this stuff. I do not think you'll see any budget reductions in any jurisdictions in our footprint. I might be wrong, but I think year over year they will climb because they just got headwinds, right?
Well, consider Charlottesville. Charlottesville, and we learned from Keith Smith. Keith Smith's the man. We love
Yeah.
Keith Smith. Keith Smith's the man.
I don't know about
Assessments in Charlottesville City are, how would you characterize them? Flat, if not marginally upticked?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. So you're talking about assessment or market value?
We're talking assessments, how they collect tax revenue based on assessed value. So flat or marginally upticked, right? So the consultant's advising the councilors that your assessments aren't upticking at the expectations that you previously had, where it was significant upticks year over year, right?
We've talked about
You've talked about this,
We've
right?
talked about where the values are going.
On top of that, the consultants in Charlottesville advised councilors that your meals tax collection is down, your sales tax collection is down or flat, your lodging tax collections are marginally upticked.
Dude, I bought lunch yesterday for the office from Lampo.
How much you dropped?
Enough.
Was it $200?
Enough.
Yeah.
My meals tax.
It was 12%. The total tax associated with that was 12%.
When I do an order and I'm picking it up, I do a 10% tip. Right, I don't do a 20%. When I sit down at a meal, I do a 20% tip. My tip was, I just looked at the bill and I went, holy, my meals tax was more than my tip.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And here's the point. And Keith, another thing that the council and City Hall, I hope to God they're considering this. The entire month of January and some of February was lost from a tax collection standpoint because of this ice storm.
Yeah, sure. On the retail side.
Right.
The retail side.
And the city went, how deep into coffers? Because the city owns its roads to manage the snow and ice storm?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean,
I guarantee you they don't have the reserves.
I would not.
The plan for this, though.
Yeah, I would, of course, yeah, because it doesn't happen every year,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. And the city owns the roads.
Look, I'm going to defend all the jurisdictions here in this statement.
Go ahead.
I would never want, we're business people. We run businesses. I'd never, ever, ever, ever take on those businesses to run. They're just impossible to run. They're impossible to, you and I, if we want to make more money, we go out and hustle. How do they make more money? They got to raise taxes and so forth and so on. I'll just get this out there. In our county, we've got on the table for this new power plant, right? When you start having economic development at that level, that's how you increase your tax base. That's how you relieve my rooftop taxes. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I'm just saying the mathematical reality of it is it's going to greatly help. But what I was trying to ask you about these percentages, why this is so important, and not to geek out now, but Nelson County, right, that has a 15% loss from 2019 to now in students, directly impacts the amount of money it gets from the state.
Enrollment.
To pay its enrollment matters, right? And I would be looking for at the state level, by the way, for them to start changing that, right? To start doing some sort of legislation that will kind of impact that a little bit. But if you're thinking about it, they have 15% less students in Nelson County. I don't think their costs went down 15%, right? Pretty sure that hasn't happened. So that means their rooftops are going to have to offset, and other business entities offset what they're losing from.
And another
state.
dichotomy or dynamic with this is the private schools
That's a big
around
word.
Charlottesville and Albemarle County, their enrollment is spiking. Try to get into a private school right now in Charlottesville or Albemarle County. A waiting list is the expectation, and if your son or daughter is not enrolled in this private school by, say, kindergarten, the slots that are open per grade level each year, you can usually count on one hand.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's how competitive and challenging it is to get in the private schools locally.
And when you have in Albemarle County, it's 20, I call it a quarter, but it's 23%, is exactly. When 23% of all the sales in Albemarle County in 2025 had a 1 in front of it.
You're talking deep-pocketed families here.
It's not 100,000.
It's talking about $1 million plus.
It has a 1 in front of it.
And what's the number, 23%?
It's 22.88, something, call it 23%, for the sake of a...
We'll say 1 in 4, for the sake of a talk show.
Sake of a talk show, 1 in 4 sales in Albemarle County.
In 2025.
In 2025.
That's a wild statistic.
No, that's a jump from 2024 to 2025 is that number. That's not the total number of sales. I think the total number of sales, I don't have that in front of me. I'm talking about the jump from the number of units that sold in 2024 versus 2025 that had a 1 in front of it jumped 23%.
Give us the number of how many units sold in 2025 that were $1 million plus.
Yeah.
First total units sold. Can you figure that out?
I can actually. I've got to. You have to do something because it's part of my report that I sent out to everybody. I just got to find it. I don't want to give people the wrong.
Because I'm going to then take that information, I will give you credit, and I will syndicate it all across the I Love CVille Network, and every person in this community will see it and read it.
Yeah, so I don't think I printed that out, so you're going to have to give me a second to look that up. So hang on.
I will say
a second.
this, viewers and listeners, that if you live in the city of Charlottesville, I genuinely expect your taxes to increase. And the tax that I see potentially upticking is your real estate tax rate. If assessments are flat in the city of Charlottesville, meals tax and sales collection are flat or down, lodging taxes is marginally up, and the city lost sales tax and meals tax collection for most of January and a lot of February because of this generational snowstorm, all while going even deeper in their reserves and coffers for snow and ice remediation across city streets because the city owns the roadways. They're not managed by VDOT. The city's got a little revenue issue here.
I got that.
On top of that, they got, and I'll throw this to you, on top of that, they got employees in the city that are unionized, that are asking for even more money. Take the support staff at Charlottesville Public Schools that are getting a 10.5% raise for 3 consecutive years.
And all that money has to come from somewhere.
Has to come from somewhere.
It has to come from
Yeah.
somewhere. Right. And the import of high dollar jobs, because that's what we're talking about, right? And the increase in the sales of the $1 million plus, more than likely, that doesn't mean in all cases, but the people that are doing that are going to be trying to get their children into these private schools or into the Western Albemarle, which, is the panacea of high schools. This is where when you're talking to people, that's where everybody wants to go. But I got those numbers for you.
Please, I'm going to write these down.
And
Go
if you-
ahead.
and
I'll
if you-
give Real Talk with Keith Smith credit.
Thank you. If you look up the document that I sent out, the market did exactly what the inventory told. I posted it. These numbers are in there. So Albemarle County, right? So total closed sales in 2024 versus 2025. 24 we had 1,541.
1,541. This is $1 million plus?
No.
Oh, total.
These are totals closed.
Okay, total units.
That's in 24. 25, we had 1,504. So we actually had a loss in sales of negative 2.4. Total volume,
What was 2025 total units sold?
1,504, negative 2.4%.
Okay, minuscule. Yeah.
But here's the important thing. Sales over $1 million. In 2024, there was 211, so it's not a huge percentage of the total number. But in 2025, we had 259 sales. The exact number is 22.7%.
211 versus 259.
So we had a 22.7% increase in sales. By the way, new construction dropped 30%. There was 24 versus 2025 in Albemarle County, 30% dropped.
So in 2025,
Albemarle County is our 10-ton elephant as far as volume goes, right? It's typical, it's 1,500 plus or minus units typically year over year. But we grew in 1 year. The number itself isn't large. The percentage is important, right? We went from 211 of million plus in 2024 to 259 in 2025. That's a 27 point, excuse me, 20. My dyslexia kicked in. 22.7% increase. I rounded it up to 23. Charlottesville, 24 to 25. We had 402 closed in 24, 403 closed in 25. So we stayed flat in the total sales. Million and up, lower number. We had 49 sales of million up in 24 and 50. In 25 we had 57. It was a 16% jump. Even what was it? Greene. So back to my comment about Greene County stabilizing and the averages between average and medium. So Greene County had 211 sales closed in 24 and 316 in 25. That's a 49.8%, a 50% increase in sales on it. But the difference, the average price actually lost just a skosh. So average price year over year was $458 in 24, and it lost just a little bit to $457. But the median price jumped 6%, 405 to 428. Oh, by the way, your new construction year over year jumped in Greene County. I found the number 469%. So you jumped from 26 units in 24 to 148 in 25, and that 148 this year will be in the twos. It'll be probably about 100 more units more than what we're looking at right now.
So I
But I posted all this stuff.
I want to highlight this again. In 2025,
Which county we're looking
Albemarle County, there were 1,504 total units sold.
at? Correct.
And that's regardless of new construction?
Total everything.
Everything, including attached and detached product?
Everything. It's all product type.
Okay. So 1,504 total units sold in Albemarle County in 2025. Of those 1,504 units sold, 259 of them
Correct.
were north of $1 million.
Correct. Which was a 22.7% jump over 24.
And the 259 units that were north of $1 million in 2025 sold represents 18%
Of the total.
of the total units sold in 2025.
Correct.
That number right there,
I didn't do that math, but
I
yeah.
did the math.
Okay.
That number right there should be front and center of every single person in this community.
Well-
18% of the units sold in Albemarle County in 2025 were north of $1 million.
Yeah, and it speaks to the pressure on the school system, not necessarily the public school system, but the private school system. You're going to see a lot of pressure on that to grow because the people that are at that price point can afford to send their kids to stab.
Well, no, it really speaks to the pressure of what's happening to the public schools because the enrollment is dropping in the public schools because the tax base, the homeowners are wealthy.
But remember that $1 million home that sends their kid to stab still paying taxes.
Yeah, but the enrollment of the public school, the revenue for the public schools is tied to head count.
There you go. And that's where the math is becoming screwed.
And it's also coinciding, Keith, with the unionization of Albemarle County. What do you got over there? You got some gas?
No. I did a
cramp?
ride. I did a ride this morning. My quad's cramping on me.
Judith, get this man some booze over there.
Well, you got to freaking pay the debt and
We
put
are
the
gonna
booze
pay
over.
that.
Yeah.
We will absolutely pay
I've
that
been
back.
pretty quiet
You
about
have
this.
been. Well,
I've
we actually
been quiet.
completely forgot about it.
I know you did. That's
But
the reason
you
I'm reminded.
did, now that memory serves, you did make a debt. You did make a bet on Real Talk, a bet that originated on the I Love CVille show. But memory is accurate. You did win this bet. You did said one weight, and I actually pushed back.
The only
on your
reason I
second.
remember it is how often do I win? So I tend not to forget the ones I win.
We will have a bottle of top shelf bourbon.
Yeah,
on,
yeah, I'm just teasing you. I'm just
on the show.
busting your
And
chops.
And I'll even add this. I'll cover Judah's action in this bet here.
Yeah, because who did he bet for?
Well, Judah technically needs to split the cost of this bottle of bourbon.
Got it.
Yeah, he bet Natalie Ostrin.
That's right.
Did you not? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I bet Michael Payne and Juan Diego Wade.
Yeah, and that's a little unfair on my side. I had some inside
I don't think
stuff.
that's unfair.
But
No, I don't think that's unfair. But I think we're having a great show, and people are really responding
Thank
well.
you. Thank
I
you.
think it really puts the pressure on the public schools that are funded based on enrollment. And the point that you also made on the show that should be emphasized even more, now that we have a Democratic-controlled state Senate and the General Assembly is Democrat, the governor is Democrat.
yeah, you got a trifecta.
You may see them, to your point, switch
Well, if
policy
Neil's
and legislation based on
Yeah.
funding and enrollment.
yeah,
That's interesting what you said there.
yeah, and Neil will know this better because he's tracking the bills, and there may be some stuff in circulation that I'm not tracking at the moment. I tend to focus on the housing bills and see how that traction is going and how that might impact or not impact us locally, and as far as inventory goes, and what we all do for a living. As you know, I'm blessed. I get to wake up every morning and help somebody with one of the 3 requirements for a trip around the sun, which is shelter, the other being food and clothing. So I take what I do very seriously.
I know you do.
It's an important thing, and that's everything from every spectrum of the market. Housing is important. If you can't get housing right, then the other 2 tend to fall apart on you pretty quickly. But yeah, so we'll see. Neil will know more about what's tracking at that end of it. I would not be surprised because it's a national trend, right, Jerry? That's what's going on. If you listen to what we've been talking about, and you track this NAR data, which again I've been critical of NAR. But man, they get this stuff right. They get their statistics and their data right. And if you start tracking what it's been doing over the years, ages are getting older. People are having children much later in life, right? You don't see it's not that you don't. There are obviously cases out there. But on average, you're not really seeing, your 24, 25, 26-year-old getting married, having a kid, buying a house. On it, that these cans have been kicked down the road, and I think that's going to have a huge impact. I'll be out of when it happens. I'll be out of it and hanging out on the beach and working on my tan. But this I think has a larger opportunity to impact our market than some of the other stuff that's talking about, like interest rates and stuff like that. I think that has a bigger impact on
Comments coming in faster than I could keep up. How about this good one from Lonnie Murray on those $1
Hey,
million
Lonnie, how you
homes? On those.
By the way, excuse me, Lonnie, you're a rock star, dude. I follow you on your running thing, and all you do is motivate me to get on my bike and do it. You actually motivated me this morning to get in a ride virtually and on my indoor bike, which I hate because I feel like a freaking hamster. So I just want to say you're a rock star, and thank you for motivating me.
This is an interesting one from Lonnie Murray. Lonnie's a very smart guy. He says, Keith Smith, of those $1 million plus homes that were sold in 2025, which somewhere between 17 and 18%. It's like 17.5%.
In Almar, we're talking about Almar
County.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know why Lonnie Murray cares about Almar
Yeah,
County.
of course.
He says, is there any way to track how many of those are second homes for the wealthy?
No.
That's very challenging to do, Lonnie.
No.
I don't think Paragon's got a filter for that.
Yeah, man.
Does Paragon have a filter for that?
No, and I'm going to get myself in all kinds of trouble because I don't understand why we don't do more demographics tracking locally, right?
Walden Cooper does that.
It does it, but getting into that information and getting it back, it's a difficult process. As somebody who's in the field working on a day-to-day basis, I would love to have had that data. We don't track where people come from, right? We really don't track those things well. I'm sure somewhere back in the day there was decisions made because it has the ability to do it, right? You can put anything at anything, but you can put almost anything in the MLS system to track, right? Because Greg Slater, God love him, he petitioned to have the green features put in it, so we can now tell what homes have green features or not. So there's a way of tracking that. It just has not. That decision hasn't been made yet. I think they're frying other fish before they get there. I wish I could answer it, brother. I'd love to have that data.
You crushed it on this show.
Oh, thank you. It's the coffee. I had 2 extra coffees today.
One
extra coffee.
How about you got electeds watching left and right here on the program. How
Yeah.
about, a monologue at the end of the show from Keith Smith. Anything you want to cover? Seriously.
Well, I just,
Suggestion would be the white paper.
yeah, I would dig through my personal Facebook page. There's a white paper in there where I titled "The Market Did Exactly What the Inventory Allowed." If you just walk away with that headline, that's exactly what represented the 24, the 25 market. Where there was inventory that met all the 6 criteria, that's where the market was. Where there wasn't, it didn't perform as well. I guess in real closing, you know what? I've been tracking a lot of stuff on Facebook. How about we just be kind to one another? That would be really awesome. So let's try to post something kind and happy instead of not. I know it's a little bit of a soapbox, but I'm going to go out and be kind with my.
You're always kind.
Yeah. Well, Yonna would argue differently.
And you got a important lunch cupcake date.
I got a cupcake date coming up. Back on the politics, starting March on the 3rd Friday. I've got confirmation with everybody. So Jude, if you can keep this in your brain, I've got Ned on board, Ned Galloway on board, Jesse Rutherford on board, and Tony O'Brien on board, and then ourselves. And we're going to start going into a real deep dive on some local politics and how it impacts us on a daily basis. Like real estate, all politics are local and all real estate is local. And this is a great opportunity to go ahead and do that.
For the viewers and listeners who I did not get to your comment, I apologize. The show is red hot and frankly scintillating today, and it was a tribute to Keith Smith.
It's fun.
Show us in fuego.
It's fun to bring folks on. I really enjoy this.
I mean, we get in our groove.
I just enjoy
8 years of experience.
I just enjoy what we do together.
Yeah, same. Keith Smith's white paper. Follow Keith Smith on Facebook. He posts content on his Facebook page that is deep dives into data and trends and dynamics in real estate locally that, goodness gracious, should be behind paywalls where people are paying $5.95 or $7.95 or $9.95 a month for this content. I sincerely mean that.
Well,
the content should be behind paywalls.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about what are some of the real estate media platforms that people pay for?
Oh, they're all over the map.
Give us a couple of ones.
Inman, Riz Media.
Yeah, Riz Media?
Yeah, Riz Media.
I mean, the stuff you're doing, they're charging for.
Yeah. Well, I share all this information with those folks. So if you follow into those, you'll end up seeing it out there. But my goal here is just to get some information out and help folks make a decision.
Keith Smith, Real Talk with Keith Smith, online at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com.
Good luck
Support
today
the
at your
partners.
Good luck on your noon show. It's going to be a good one.
Thank you. Mike Kochis, Police Chief at 12:30 on the I Love CVille show. Mike Kochis, Police Chief, Charlottesville City at 12:30 on the I Love CVille show. An update on the interview we have next week with United States Congressman John McGuire, who's coming into the studio next week on the I Love CVille show. Judah Wickhauer is behind the camera. Keith Smith, the star of our show.
Cupcake time.
My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us. So long, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Very nicely done, Keith Smith. That show was awesome.
Thank you, buddy.
That's the best one